good afternoon or evening or morning or wherever y'all at. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. No complaints, man. I think we got something very good and very insightful to talk about today when it comes to communication and how important it is, whether that be in your business and your personal life and your relationships and your day to day with family members. I read something earlier that says communication is your key to opening the doors of your life. Let me say that again. Say communication is the key to opening the doors in your life. And I was like, how? But the more I think about it, how we communicate and how we get messages across, or even how we receive messages, that's a big part of our day to day and where we're going and how we're moving forward. So, we'll kick off with that. And I'll just ask you, how important do you think communication is, and what does that mean to you when you think about communicating well?
I think communication is the way that we relate to each other, right? That could be body language, that could be verbally, that could be written, but it's how we relate to each other and understand each other.
Hmm.
And in regards to communicating well, I think communicating well depends on the person you're communicating with, because I could I could have a dialogue with you, RJ, and then go have try to have that same dialogue with someone else and it not go well. And I
Hmm.
think you have to understand how people best communicate. And once you find that out, then I think that's when you can say this communication went well, meaning both people said, this method works for me. I walked away understanding what you were saying, rather I agree or disagree. I understand where you're coming from and I respect it. And both people can say that.
When you was talking, I was thinking about how important is it to know yourself in order to communicate well? Like, how much growth do you have to do in order to be able to properly articulate a message to where somebody can get it and they can understand it from you?
Oh, wow. I think that's a good one, because what happens is, first of all, you must be aware of how you communicate, right? And you've probably encountered people, RJ, that have body language that doesn't agree with what's coming out of their mouth, right?
Hmm.
And if you're not aware of that, then that's an issue. So those are things that you have to work on as a person to own that, to make sure that everything is in alignment. So I think you must be very aware of how you communicate overall, and the tone that you're using, the volume in your voice, how fast you're talking, all of those things play a part.
Because I've heard people over time and they'll say things, and I've said it too. This is just how I sound. This is just how I talk. This is just my demeanor.
Right.
And that may be true, but the way you talk, your tone, your demeanor, it may not be getting the right message across to the other person. And some people may not care,
Right.
but you got to think about that. That could hinder your next movement, right? Because I know people that talk with a very aggressive tone. They're very aggressive. It's very strong. Now, you may not mean anything by it, but when it comes across to somebody else, it may comes across as intimidating. It may come across
Correct.
as, a put off to somebody else. And you may say, well, that's just me. I'm not changing. Okay, but what if that was a business meeting and somebody was about to endorse your business or write you a $2.5 million check, but you come across so aggressive and so rugged and so raw that they said, I don't know if I want to put my money into this because you're a little too aggressive. And that may not even really be who you are. It's just a way that you sound. So I think us paying attention to how we communicate and paying attention to also the facial expressions of the other person, and being willing to stop and ask questions. That's something that I have not gotten right over the years, but I'm getting better, is having a conversation and remembering to pause and allow that person to say something back and me listen to see if they're on the same page that I'm on. Because sometimes we talk, and I'm doing it now, but forgive me. Sometimes we talk for like 10 minutes straight, and it's like
Right.
we're just rambling off everything that we're thinking, not knowing if that other person is actually receiving it.
Right. And it's funny that you say that. I mean, I can be transparent and say I've done that as well. But to your point where you mentioned something earlier about people saying that's just the way that I am, or that's just the way that I talk. That's when I believe people are letting what they want to say get in the way of what people need to hear. That goes in for coaching, training, facilitation, speaking, all of those things, personal relationships, because what you need to say sometimes is just for you, right? What the other person need to hear, that doesn't mean it's all in alignment. So you got to check that. So that's the first thing I will say. As for checking in with people, I know for me, and I've had family and friends get mad with me because I'm like, so I just said this thing. So what is it that you heard me say? And they're like, Demetra, don't bring that coaching stuff in here. But I'm trying to make sure we're on the same page, because it could easily, we cannot be on the same page. And I don't want to keep, the conversation going and we're both going two separate ways.
And that's the thing, because a lot of times what you say is not what a person hears, even if you are a
Right.
great communicator. I actually learned that in the last couple of years of being more consistent on social media, posting videos. And I'll notice sometimes that some people will comment under the video and it has absolutely 100% nothing to do with what I was talking about in the video. Like, it's so far off from what I was talking about, or they'll take something that I said using it as an example, and it'll become the cornerstone of that entire message. And I'm like, no, that's not what I was talking about. That was just the example of what I was using. I use a lot of metaphors and, analogies sometimes when I talk. And, I'll say something about, just like working out, because I know working out is an easy thing for people to relate to. And I have somebody come in, I work out 3 days a week. And I'm like, okay, great. But that's not, that ain't the message. I wasn't really talking about working out. I was talking about something totally different. So you learn that even though sometimes you believe that you're speaking clearly, you believe that you're getting the message across, there are people that are hearing something 100% different. So, in that, you have to realize that, hey, sometimes what I'm saying, especially if I'm not thinking it through, that person is not receiving it in the way that I think that they are.
Absolutely. Like one of my mentors, and it's still funny till this day, shared with me, and this was via text, that he and his wife were having this text conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And she was out there shopping, as we women typically do, right? And she sent a picture of this purse.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, oh, I like this purse. What do you think? What have you? And he said, no, price is too much. She took that as no price is too much and bought the
Oh,
purse.
wow.
Same sentence, right? Same sentence, two different meanings. She thought he meant no price is too much. He was like, no, the price is too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's all how we perceive things.
Yeah.
And she brought and it was this really expensive bag. She ended up taking it back because when he got back from his trip, the purse is on the table. She's like, thank you, honey. And he was like, wait a minute.
Right. So I said no.
And right. And it goes to show people are listening based on their perspectives. So you really have to check in to make sure we're all on the same page.
And that's not an easy thing to do all the time, because especially in the world where we live, where, we are sending a lot of messages. You know what I mean? We have multiple ways to communicate with a person. And most of it is not even verbal all the time, so we are sending messages. We are posting things on social media, and there is no dialogue. I don't have the opportunity to clarify. I think in those situations, the best thing you have to do is just be as thorough as possible. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
sometimes it's not what you say, is what you don't say. You know, I've gotten in trouble with that from text messages. I've learned over time, if there is a serious conversation to be had, you probably don't want to do it via text message. You know, you
Absolutely.
probably, yeah, you probably want to pick up the phone or meet with this person and sit down face to face, because your percentages of a person getting it wrong or hearing it in a different way, those percentages drastically increase via text message, via social media, DM messages, via things that we post, versus when you're face to face, or versus when you're actually on the phone talking to this person. But I think that's something we have to pay attention to, because if we don't, we end up having these miscommunications and these misunderstandings. Like you said, that was a huge misunderstanding. I've done it to the
Yeah.
point where I've texted somebody and I said, it's early in the day, but I'll say, all right, take care, have a good day. And they took it to mean, oh, so you're not talking to me no more today? Nah, I ain't necessarily mean it like that. I was just saying, take care and have a good day. But they interpret it as this was definitive. This was the end. This was you're saying goodbye. And I'm like, well, not necessarily. So we all see through, and that's something that I'll ask you about, this lens that we
Mm-hmm.
see things through. You know,
Correct.
what is that? I know it's a perspective, but that lens is drastically pushing us forward, or sometimes it's drastically holding us back.
Yeah, that's the lens that we view the world through, right? And it's based on our beliefs and our way of thinking and belief. And each and every person has the ability to change that lens any given day.
Mhm.
But it comes to the work that you alluded to earlier, really putting in that work to be more aware that this lens is not helping you. And you can change it to something else that's more empowering. But as long as you're not aware, then you're just going to walk around living in the world with a warped view that doesn't empower you.
And I mean, we all have
Yeah.
lenses. I mean, we all are a product
Right.
of, our parents, right? The environment we were raised in. I hear things all the time from other people. They'll say, I'm doing this. And my lens go, okay, because I don't do that, or I don't
Right.
think like that. Or, should I say that? Okay, I'll say that. Somebody gonna get mad. But anyway, or not understand it. Let me try to communicate it properly. Um, I
Okay.
heard I had a friend, and I guess her husband, she told another friend, she said, oh, my husband, he's going on a boys trip. I don't, for what? That's my lens, because my lens said, I don't go out of town with no bunch of men. For what? What we doing? Like, we go hang out like for some few hours, but you talk about a week or two with a bunch of like, my lens is, what's the purpose in that? But and I'm not saying don't do it. Please don't take it that way, because just like we're talking about communication, somebody's gonna take that wrong. What? Somebody's gonna take that and go,
Right.
he said that's a bad. No, I didn't say that. I'm just saying through my lens, my friends,
Right.
we go out of town. We want a woman come with you. You could, bro, you could come, but I'm bring. You know what I mean? That's how I think. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it was interesting because it's no right or wrong, but it was just the lens that I see things through. It was how I see the world, or how I think, or how I've been taught, which is totally different from the way somebody else has been taught. Which kind of brings
Ab-
up another point of why we have misunderstandings. And I think we do have misunderstandings because of the communication, but we also have misunderstandings because we haven't learned that just because my lens doesn't see the world like your lens sees the world doesn't mean that either one of us is wrong.
And okay, here's my perspective on this, right? When you're inside the box like this and your thought process is in here, everything that doesn't fit in this box is deemed to be incorrect.
Hmm.
Well, what if RJ's on the outside of the box? Does that make him wrong? It's just wrong in your way of thinking. But other people who have a broader perspective, it just means that they're not on the same accord. Don't mean you have to agree. Doesn't make it right or wrong. we're just not on the same accord. And that comes with being aware of how you think, and that is more than one perspective that people could have. And I think that comes with maturity too, to be aware, to be like, you know what, RJ, I hear you. I totally understand your perspective on guys going on a week or 2 week trip. I get it. But me and my people, we like to go to the whatever, we went to Vegas for a bachelor party.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 weeks, but my boy get married, XYZ. We went to Vegas for the weekend. So that's how we do our guys' trips, for example, right? But
Mm-hmm.
that's not saying are wrong. This is our perspective and this is yours. Why can't they coexist?
And that's the thing. And I think that's why we have so much turmoil in the world, is because we don't realize, like, hey, it's okay to think different. It's okay to, and it kind of goes back to people saying I'm open minded. And a lot of times, in order to communicate, you have to open your mind, because I know I've
Right.
said things to people to where before I even get it out all the way, because it's so drastically different from something that they believe in or something that they would do or something they would adhere to, before I even get it out all the way, they going, oh, wait a minute, what? And I'm like, calm down. I'm not saying you have to take on this thought or take on this belief. I'm just sharing something. But a lot of times that's where our lack of communication comes, because if it doesn't sound like something that fits your lens, you easily dismiss it.
Right. Almost definitely. And I think too, if we understood the power of our beliefs and our way of thinking, then we could change our perspectives. And I think what you said at the beginning, like the way we communicate is the key, right? Well, the way you communicate is based off what you believe. That's why people can't talk politics and religion, right? You want to end the conversation and clear room fast, bring up politics and religion. People will
Absolutely.
not be friends anymore. They forever not talking to people because they believe differently. And if you're not mature enough to say, I believe this way, you believe this way, but yet we can find a way to work together, that's a problem. But as you know, that's bigger than just you and I having this conversation. That's a worldly conversation, period.
Mhm.
But I just think if we could understand that everybody has the freedom to believe what they want, as long as it doesn't hurt other people. Your beliefs dictate how you communicate. That's why people can't talk politics and religion. You want to clear room in a friendship for the rest of your life? Talk politics and religion with people who do not agree.
I used to be one of those people that couldn't talk politics and religion. And I think you can't talk it with everybody if they haven't grown above this level. But especially religion, like, I understand now I could talk about religion with anybody, because for me, I understand that my beliefs are my own. And if your beliefs are opposite of that, they don't attack my beliefs, you know,
Right.
and I think a lot of times what we have to do is we have to get to that point where we understand that just because we believe something, the belief within you makes it true. It doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% fact, you know.
Right.
But people get their beliefs and facts confused. That produces the argument, because a lot of things that we believe, that we argue about, none of us have any proof of it. So it's no right or wrong. You know, when we look at religion,
Right.
I believe a certain thing, you may believe a certain thing, this person believes a certain thing, but none of us were there at the beginning. None of us have any proof outside of the documentation that we have, in which we hope is true. We don't know concretely. So our
Right.
belief tells us it's true. So we argue with somebody else, not understanding that you're arguing over something that's not necessarily a fact. A fact is, if I jump off of this building, gravity is a fact for everybody. It's going to happen whether you like it or not, you know, but
Right.
you believing that, um, this is extreme, but you believing that an angel walks with you every day, that's your belief. Somebody else might not believe that. The argument comes when you can't see past, that's real for me. It doesn't have to be real for you.
that comes from a mutual respect of just saying, okay, you believe that. I mean, I don't have to go defend my beliefs to people, because what I believe is what I believe, right? And the only issue I have with it is if that belief is hindering you from growth, right? And then it's like you said, impacting the way you relate to other people, and most of all relate to yourself, that in regards to moving towards your goals, and that doesn't have to be professional. That could be, personally as well. That's when I'm like, okay, you might need to evaluate that. And if it's not working, then change it. And two, the other thing I think about is how we communicate with ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And I always tell my clients, be careful talking about you, because you are listening, right? Like, your brain does what you tell it to do. If you
Yeah.
say, I have imposter syndrome, I'm not good at this, your brain is like, well, you said I'm not good at it, so I'm not going to be good at it. And it
Yeah.
goes on a hunt to not be good at whatever you are saying that you're not good at. So being able to communicate to yourself in a positive manner, RJ, reprograms your subconscious. It's already 75 to 85% counterproductive anyway. So why
Mm.
not daily or weekly or whatever time frame you choose to operate in, find a way to speak positive things that help you grow?
That's a big, big thing, because oftentimes it is the communication with ourselves that are hindering us. It's the what's that movie that Will Smith was in called After Earth? I love it's one part of this whole movie that makes the movie the greatest thing ever. And he says that we are all telling ourselves a story. And I'm like, huh.
Yep.
Within yourself, you're telling yourself a story. That story is either productive and it's moving you in the direction that you want to go, or you're telling yourself a story that's non-productive and it's holding you back from what you want to do. And Will Smith went on to say, he was talking about something totally different in that movie, but he said that day my story changed. And I think that
Right.
at some point, your communication with you, if you want to move ahead, it has to change from, I grew up here, so we don't make it this far, or I'm this nationality, so it's gonna hold me back, or I don't have the things that this person had, when they were growing up, so that's why they're successful. At some point, you got to talk to you in a way that's promoting and pushing you forward.
There's a book. It's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by
Mm.
Dr. Shad Setter. That book, RJ, like, one of the examples it gives is that, let's say you won a first class trip
Mhm.
to anywhere, right? They're like,
Mhm.
RJ, you and your family, your partner, whomever, you all can go on this first class trip. You don't need to bring any clothes. We're going to send the black car to pick you guys up. Would you go?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now we get to the airport and they're like, RJ, you can pick wherever you want to go. You guys are going to get, everything will be provided for you. You would still go on the trip, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Now you get to the plane. They're like, okay, you guys get nothing but first class seats. You on the Emirates. I think I'm saying that right. Please forgive me if I'm
Mm.
not saying it right, guys. Okay. So you're
Sounds
flying in the
expensive.
Emirates, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you got a little cube where you kind of that lay back. You know what I'm talking about. So you
Right, right.
chilling.
That's VIP stuff.
Right. So you sitting there, the little lady come out with the treats. You like, ooh, give me that. Give me the wine. Give me. So everybody chilling
Hmm.
until the flight attendant comes on and says, buckle, they say buckle up, blah, blah, blah. Be
Right.
safe, airbag. And then she says, well, guys, one other thing. The pilot only has about 75 to 85% of the directions for where we're going. But we'll get you there. I
Mm.
saw how your face changed, right? You would get
Right.
off.
Absolutely.
You would get off, and most people would. But in the book, the guy says, but that's how we live our lives. off. He said 75 to 85% of the information you have is counterproductive. It's never going to get you where you want to go. So change. And that analogy, I laugh at it every time I read that in the book, because we would get off that plane, but yet we drive around and walk around in our lives daily.
That's good, because in the world of social media, I see so much information, or we all see so much information, that a lot of times the information that people are giving is so counterproductive to what you actually want. I'm like, why would you listen to that?
Right.
Especially when it comes to like dating and relationships.
Oh, yeah.
I live in Atlanta. You live in Atlanta now too. And if you go Google that, somebody's gonna tell you it ain't gonna happen for you here. You know what I mean? You can't date. You ain't gonna find nobody. They not here. It's bad.
Right.
It's terrible. But the very people who are liking that and commenting and amening are the people that live here that are trying to find somebody. Go figure. That is not gonna work for you, because that is programming your subconscious mind that it's not here. It's like saying that, I'm a man, I'm this age. There's no way you're going to make $30 million. It's not possible, but I'm trying to make $30 million. How is listening to that going to help me? No, it's going to reiterate this voice in my head saying that's not possible for you. It's not going to happen for you. And then we wonder why it doesn't happen.
Right. Now, RJ, that might get you in trouble. Okay. You can't talk about the ATL.
Hey, well, I'm a native, so I got a little pass, I think. But yeah, I probably still get caught up for that one.
Oh, but you know what? Being on the female side of it, when I hear that, and then also you forgot about the other one. ATL is full. We don't need no more people. That's
That's
where
true.
you live.
That's true. Now, I'm sorry, but there's some truth to that. We good right now. We're trying to sort out the millions of people we got currently, but no, seriously.
But this, and I say that because, for example, right? There's several companies that have moved here in the last 5 to 7 years that have got the economy booming here in Atlanta. So when people are saying we don't need any more people, somebody else who was considering maybe moving their business here could be like, I'm good.
True.
And we know realistically that wouldn't happen because they're looking at data when they're moving here. But if you had that person that was kind of tainted by that, they could be like, yeah, I'm good. And those jobs could really impact the economy.
True.
So it's bigger than us just saying these things. But the point I want to make is when people are communicating those things, it's all from their perspective, right? And there's some people that have moved here and have gotten married and have great marriages or quote unquote great relationships. And because they're open and aware of what they're looking for. They're not reading the counterproductive messages that you alluded to. They're focused on what they want. They have been working on themselves in order to be prepared when this quote unquote thing comes.
When I was 18 years old, I had a group of mentors, some of them direct, some of them indirect, and I learned this. And it sticks with me because they would always say, if you buy someone's opinion, you buy their lifestyle.
Oh, so elaborate.
If you buy someone's opinion, you buy their lifestyle, which means that, like you just said, everybody is communicating through their lens, through their perspective. So if we stay on this topic of Atlanta relationships and dating, that person that's making the video that's saying you can't date here, it's bad, it's terrible, that's that person's opinion, that's their experience. And for you to adopt that and say, oh my God, you're right. And I don't even live there yet, but I know you're right. Guess what? You just bought their lifestyle. You just bought the same quote unquote misfortune or the same thing that they're going through because now you've adopted a belief. And remember, I said your beliefs, whether it's real or not, makes it true for you. So a lot of times we have to think about that. I see a lot of stuff online, not just about dating and relationships, but I see stuff online about business. I see stuff online about everything. And I always think about it. Do I want to be you? Because if
Right.
I buy your opinion on that thing and I adopt it, I buy your lifestyle. I subject myself to the same lens that you're using to see the world that you have before you. If I don't want that world, then I might not want to accept your lens. So it's something that we got to be very careful about, to say the least.
And I think too, um, you know, it makes me wonder, right? Now we all have our perspectives. But if this belief of whatever it is in your life is not powerful, like not helping you propel you forward, why are you holding on to it?
Because I think a lot of people don't realize it. You know what I mean? It's a common thing to state how you feel, right? And we also do something else. We believe that things are general, and they're not. Life is not a general thing. Life is very specific in most cases with everybody. My path is not your path. Your journey is not my journey.
Right.
Even if they look similar, typically they still aren't. And we live in this society to where I think you just kind of speak whatever you're feeling, not understanding that that's maybe just unique to me. Or we believe that because we've had an experience, it's going to be the same experience across the board for everybody. I've met people who somebody else has told me, oh, this person is this, and this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Watch out for this person because they're this, they're that, they're this, they're that. And I'm like, okay. And then I meet that person, I'm like, I don't see that at all. So that was your experience with this person. That was your dealings
Absolutely.
with this person. But we speak in generality so much. If you look at all the advice, and I know when it's online, you can't necessarily speak specific to somebody, but we got to be able to take that in and realize, especially when it's a strong opinion about, hey, if you do this, you're going to get this. Maybe, you know what I mean? But a lot of times we've subscribed to this mentality, if I do what they've done, I'm going to get what they got. Not necessarily,
Right.
not necessarily, or this person has a successful relationship and they said that all you got to do is, don't date for 6 months. And then when you do it like this, and then make sure that, y'all only go 5 miles from where you live. Because if you go 10 miles, that means this. That's their experience. Because nobody
Absolutely.
knows every single person in the world. Nobody's had every single encounter, so they can't tell you that.
I just think we must be open to learning
Mhm.
other ways to communicate, asking, hey, RJ, we good? We on the same page, right? Or what did you hear me say? And that way we all can say yay or nay, I understand, and we can kind of continue to move forward. And also being aware that there's another perspective beyond your own,
Mhm.
and respectful of it. I'm not saying you got to be like, oh, we're gonna break bread and be happy together. No, but I
Right.
just respect that your opinion is different, because it is different. And I think those things are important. And I think too, we talked about communicating and talking, but I think too about listening. That is so very important. We have listening in different levels, right? Like we have it where, and I know my family and friends have done this to me, where I could be talking and they'll be like, oh yeah, oh, did you get that thing in the middle of my sentence? And I'm
Mhm.
like, I mean, think about it. It's happened to all of us, where you could be
Mhm.
talking to your somebody in your family or maybe a close friend, and you like going in, and they're like, oh yeah, one more thing, but did you get this thing over there? And then you like, yeah, and then they're like, okay, go ahead, I'm listening. And it's like, wait a minute, were you listening to respond, or were you listening to process? There's a difference.
There's a difference. Yeah. And it says you're not listening because if I can interrupt your thought with something totally different, that means that's what's really going on in my head. Like, so while you're
Right.
talking, I'm thinking about, did you get the potato salad for the barbecue? You know what I mean? Like, so you talking about something totally different. I go, hey, did you get that potato salad? Oh, no, I'm listening to you. Not really, because your brain is thinking about something totally different than what I'm talking about at the time. And we all have done that. I know I've done that a million times,
I,
but it's something to be cautious of because you're missing something valid. You're missing a valid point. I've been on the phone with people and I've gotten caught. I've gotten caught to the point that they talking and they'll ask me a question. And I'm like, oh yeah. And they like, yeah. And I'm like, well, no. I'm like, shoot, I have no idea what you was talking about. Cause I'm
right.
I've checked and a part of that might be twofold. It might be as a receiver, active listening, and it may be as a communicator, active stopping. Like because a lot of times we don't receive a ton of information at once. So if you find, and I'm bad at this, so I got to work on it, but if you find yourself talking for 10 minutes straight and you haven't stopped to check in and say, hey, you good? You hear me? We together? Then that person, the average brain function or the average mind probably has started talking about I gotta fold these clothes, or started thinking about I gotta fold these clothes, or I gotta cook dinner, and they've tuned out from that. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's funny. I mean, again, we've all done it. It's all happened to us. So it's just being really cognizant that these things happen and that we want to be better. And I think too, what was the other thing? I know we were talking about different things, like what we heard or what we said is not always what people hear, and
absolutely.
that people's and beliefs impact how they show up and how they communicate. Um, I think too, before we get to the communication piece, we know that's like, for me, that's like the final part, right? And
Hmm.
you and I talked about what people believe. The moment you believe something or you think it or whatever, you start looking for evidence to support you. Like the people, like you said, people, talking about you can't date in the ATL, right? So they're like, well, I heard that they said you can't date in Atlanta. And then they tell it, so now they telling other people, everybody having a conversation about it. And now guess what? Well, girl, you heard so and so, this happened to them. Their relationship didn't work out, and them and their partner split, and this happened. Okay, but what about the people that winning? Nobody talks about that. So the moment you find that, well, the moment you take on that belief and put it in your book bag, so to speak, is the moment you start looking for evidence to support it. And once you
True.
find one thing, it could be something on whatever news that ain't even real, a blog that's not even real. You
Yeah.
take it and you run with it, and now you feel a certain way. That's when the confrontation or disagreements really start, because you basing it on, well, I read this and the so and so said and the blah 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 said. But to your point, RJ, you didn't talk to everybody. You don't know
Hmm.
everybody that live in Atlanta.
You don't.
So now you are right. Now you out here having conversations about it and communicating with other people and tainting the overall experience for everybody.
True. And I think we also have to realize that a lot of us, when we talk, it sound we live in a world today where everything sounds like a fact, right?
Oh yeah.
Everything sounds like a fact. But if you research the majority of what people are saying, it's not a fact. I've lived in Atlanta for my pretty much my entire life. And this right here, and somebody gonna watch this and you agree with me. I've heard this in 900 different ways. People will say, oh man, when you go to Atlanta, it's 12 to 1. It's 12 women to one man. If you stop the next person on the next corner, they'll say, man, they say it's 52 to 1 out here, bro. And then if you stop the next person, they say, man, it's 122 to 1 out here. Like everybody, if you go do a survey and just ask people, what's the ratio of men to women? I heard it's 19 to 1. Everybody is going to tell you a different number, which tells you that don't nobody know what they're talking
Right.
about. Not one of those people have done a study or read a census or however you're supposed to figure that out. It's just something that we throw out there. And unfortunately, it becomes truth. It becomes a fact, whether it's real or not. And I think when you're communicating, you have to realize, like, I'm saying stuff, but it ain't really a fact. This is just something I made up in my mind. But the world is full of that. I see it all the time on social media. Dude, my biggest one is like these people who are like calling out celebrities. It's funny to me because they like, no, such and such, they do this because of this. How do you know? Do you hang out with this person? Have you ever met this person? Have you ever been in the same room with this person? Do you even know anybody that
Right.
directly knows this person? No, but my sister, cousin, friend had a friend that used to be, come on, man. Like, so we live our lives off of a lot of like hearsay. And unfortunately, the hearsay becomes truth to us, and it has no validity to it. There's no proof, there's no facts, there's nothing behind it. But if we're not careful, we'll listen to that communication, digest it, allow it to become a belief for us, and now it becomes our truth.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We might get in trouble for talking about the A, so I'm gonna be quiet. You're the native, so you get
Hey,
liberty to talk about it. I'm
you got to find me
I'm only
first, and
being
that's the key. I'm hiding. No, but it's true. Again, everything that we talk about is about making you think. You know what I mean? That's about making you think because somebody has adopted that belief and you haven't thought it all the way through. This person who said you can't date here probably dated 10 people. They ain't date millions of people. If they
right.
did, good Lord. Look, but you probably dated 10 people and you had 5 to 10 bad experiences. So that blankets millions. Wow. How? That doesn't even make logical sense. I heard something uh, the other week and maybe I should. Always have to watch the stories that I tell because some of them are personal with people that I really know. And I'm like, they may watch this, but if I'm talking about you, don't nobody know, so don't say that. But I was talking to somebody and they was like, the elite, they do this and this. And here we're real cool. So I was able to say, how you know? Like, cause if you ain't the elite, how you know what the elite do? Like it's just those questions that you have to ask yourself when you hear people saying things so that you don't adopt an opinion that's complete garbage. But it's out here though. It happens. We have so many platforms to communicate on until you really have to be careful of the information that you digest and the information that you take in.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think just making these assumptions about people, you don't know. And I think, it can be a challenge to check yourself at times. But if
Mhm.
this belief that you're holding on to in regards to how you see the world and how you communicate with people is not empowering, change it. Your
Change it.
life will be so much more here with if you can see it in a positive light that brings you happiness and joy. Why hold on to something that's holding you down? Why, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
True. And I'll end with this and I'll twofold. On the one side, I would say for all of us, be careful when we communicate. Because be careful that you're not communicating and perpetuating something that is not a real fact. It's your experience, it's how you feel, it's something that you've gone through, but it's not a fact for everybody. So I would say be careful when we're communicating to make sure that we're not overly doing that. And then be careful when you're receiving that you can recognize like that's somebody's opinion. That's somebody's lens. That's somebody's perspective. And that may not apply to me. But it can apply to me if I take it and make it my own belief and make it my truth.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, RJ, I think we need to give the people some takeaways now. So,
Okay.
watch it communicate, right? Meaning what to you? So we can got it.
Be clear as possible when you're
Okay.
communicating. If you can, now I won't say if you can think about what you're saying before you say it.
Okay.
Check in with people.
Okay.
Because if you're taking the time to communicate something to somebody, you actually want them to get it in the context in which you meant for them to get it in. So check in with
Right.
them. You're having a dialogue and a conversation and you're telling somebody something, stop and say, did that make sense? And let them elaborate on that, because sometimes even when a person says, yeah, that made sense, I may ask them a question about it, or I'll let them start talking and I realize, oh, it made sense, but it didn't make sense in the context of which I was telling it to you in. You know,
Absolutely. Okay.
and you have to do that, especially for our close relationships. For our very close relationships, we have to understand how people receive. Um, what things do they take personal? What things am I saying that they're not getting? Watch your tone. Your tone sometimes is everything. I was always told, and I understand now, that you can say darn near anything to anybody with the right tone.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, I can check you up
Yeah.
real good with the right tone and you won't even feel offended.
Right.
You
Right.
know, but
Yeah.
I can say something really nice to you, or I can say something that's not even offensive in the wrong tone and you can take it the wrong way. So we got to watch our tone. We got to watch how we come across. All of that is important to me. So I would say think about that as you're communicating.
And I think the other thing is, the listening piece, right? That you and I talked about, making sure you're really listening, not to respond, but to understand and to relate, which is a deeper level. And the other thing is really understanding that there can be other ideas or perspectives outside of yours.
Hmm.
You don't agree, just respect where the person's coming from. I don't know anybody that's on the same page 100% of the time. I just don't. Um, we're all unique with our own life experiences, so just respect people for where they are is my take. And I'm trying to remember the other thing we talked about. I didn't write anything down. I know we were just kind
Right.
of flowing with it, but
No, we talked about a lot, but I think those are the main things. Watch the information that you take in. Make sure that you're not, believing things just because it's being communicated. Make sure you understand that it's not always a fact. You know what I mean? Like, you can say anything. You know what I mean? And just because a person says it with conviction, still don't mean it's true.
yeah,
You
that
know,
I can't
it just doesn't.
that yeah. And I think oh, the other thing, watching what you say to yourself, right? Is saying positive to yourself. Nobody wants to walk around saying, I'm not good enough. I'm never smart enough. I'm never going to get it right. You are listening. So empower yourself. Be like, I'm still working on it. I'm going to continue to get better. Speak positive over your own life so you can continue to get better. Your brain does exactly what you tell it to do. So tread lightly with that.
I'll say we can practice. Let's end it with us properly communicating who we are and what we do. Just in case you've never seen us before, you've never watched any of this, and you're like, who are these two people that I've been listening to? I'll let you go, Demetra.
Okay, well, I'm Demetra Moore, and I coach leaders. Some of them are executives, or I'll say middle level management, and I'm typically working with them on embracing those new leadership roles. People usually have challenges with imposter syndrome, having executive presence, transitioning from being that leader, transitioning into the leader from being a colleague. That is not always the easiest transition for people. So that's typically the space that I work in. I love it. So any questions about that, please DM me. And RJ, I'll pass it over to you.
Good. My name is RJ Hodges. I'm a personal development and business development coach. I spend my time coaching around this philosophy that I created called the art of mastering you. And I believe that if you learn to master you, which is all of this stuff that we're talking about today, if you learn to master you, then you can master the business, then you can master your personal life, you can master your challenges. Under that art of mastering you umbrella, I have refuel and recharge, where I talk about, overcoming being mentally drained and overwhelmed. I have, talking about manifestation and aligning yourself and belief systems. So my whole thing is helping people with strategies, perspectives, and guidelines of how to better master themselves so that they can become the higher and better version of themselves. So yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we hope guys next time. We're looking forward to any feedback. Hopefully we didn't step on anybody's toes talking about the A.
We
I'm new
did.
here. I'm gonna blame it on Jay. He's a native, so he can take it.
Hey, it's all good. Every city has it though. You know, for the same people that say that about Atlanta, you can Google Houston and they say the same thing. Then you can Google
Right.
Miami and people say the same thing. You can Google LA and they say the same thing. So you just with that, you know that it can't all be true. It's just the lens. It's just how whoever is communicating that their experience and how they've seen it.